350 Legend versus 450 Bushmaster. For reference up top, that is a Palmetto State Armory build with one of their 350 Legend uppers, and down here is a Wyndham Weaponry 450 Bushmaster with a Rainier Arms muzzle brake, both topped off with Vortex 1/8. So obviously one of the largest differences you're going to see here is the cartridge, right? 350. Technically it's a 357 Magnum bullet, so I think those are 355.355, essentially 0.35 inches, and this is essentially 0.5 or 4.5 inches, right? 45 caliber versus 357, 9mm, whatever you want to look at it as. So it's a big freaking bullet. This, for reference, is a Hornady custom. I want to say, yep, 250 grain FXTs. These are some really, really nice rounds. People debate whether Hornady Custom is different than Hornady Black. I don't know. They're essentially the same thing. But acclaimed velocity, I don't have a chronograph, so we can only go off acclaimed. However, depending on your barrel length, depending on even the temperature, whatever's going on, if you're bolt gun, semi-auto gun, AR versus even any other type of semi-auto in 450, you could see different results, but we're just going to go 2200 feet per second versus Winchester's Deer Season XP. These are claimed to be going 23-25 feet per second at the muzzle. Obviously, energy-wise, 450 all day. I mean, there's no question. You know, relatively-ish same velocity, but a whole lot more weight, 150 grain versus a 250. And I will say, performance out of this projectile especially, I can't say about the 350. I just personally have not shot a deer with it yet, but this 450, you do your part in putting that shot on target, and I mean it is pretty devastating what that 450 will do. So if you're going for pure stopping power, you know, 450 is the way to go. That's no question. One thing to note as well, though, these both use a lot of AR-15 parts. The 350 even more so, because the 350 it is even just a standard mil-spec AR-15 bulk carry group, lower parts kit, upper, everything except for the barrel and the magazine is going to be slightly different. Whereas on the 450, you're going to need a new bulk carry group, as well as a new barrel, and a new magazine as well. Otherwise, a lot of parts are still interchangeable. So if you're looking to maybe you have a lot of parts sitting around for a new upper, a 350 might be better for you there. In terms of power though, and in terms of just the round itself, it really reminds me of 300 Blackout. And for reference here is a 300 Blackout. I do have a Palmetto State Armory build as well. It is a pistol with an 8.5 inch barrel. But one of the reasons why I think this is really close to 300 Blackout and also very close to 30-30 is just kind of ballistics of it. And I saw a test done where these guys were chopping a barrel down, and 350 was still doing very well as you got to shorter barrel lengths, to the point where, you know, maybe if this round had been around a couple years ago when I got my 300 Blackout because I wanted a pistol build and I still wanted power for a truck gun, I think 350 pistol could be very viable for both a deer gun and some sort of truck gun, because you have more than that 5.56. Ammo isn't too expensive, right? So right now it's about $25 for some hunting rounds, but I've seen full metal jackets for about $15 for 20, which is about what you pay for some decent 300 Blackout anyways. The rounds performance are really good, and they're even coming out with some subsonic offerings, which is really cool if you have a can. Like I mentioned before, performance is a big thing. And like I have not shot a deer yet with our 350 build, but I have shot multiple deer with this 450. And this is a round we recovered out of a dead deer after it went through it. We double lunged it and it somehow tracked its way up to its neck and we pulled it out. But I mean, that's some awesome expansion right there. The bullet did exactly what it needed to. And this, again, I mean, for me personally, I really trust Hornady. I think their designs are awesome, and this is kind of proof that it's been working, and they at least have designed a good bullet for the 450. Now, something comparable to a 450 Bushmaster would be this. This is a 50 Beowulf. Very interesting in and of itself. Um, Power-wise, you're looking about equal. I have taken a couple deer with the 50 Beowulf, and if you hit them right with the 50, they're going down. I mean, it's a huge chunk of lead. This specifically, I think, is this might be a 400 or 350 grain lead soft point. I don't particularly know. I lost the box, but ton of offerings for 50 Beowulf. The only issue is you're only really limited to Alexander Arms loading of it, but these are 500 Smith & Wesson bullets loaded into their casings, which is kind of a weird form of 5.56 casing, so it does use a 5.56 bulk hit group. But I'd still prefer the 450, but that's a whole nother video. So in terms of accuracy, for this 450 Bushmaster, like I said, this is a 1:8 vortex up on top. I personally shot this out to 300 yards with honestly very little issue. It does have a decent bit of recoil to it, but the Rainy Arms brake on the end of here actually does a pretty decent job at mitigating the recoil. Makes it a little louder, but I wear hearing protection when I'm out hunting anyways, so I'm not worried about that. And as well as this rubber butt plate, it helps a good bit. Specifically to this wind and weaponry, this stock is really nice because you can really fine tune it to yourself in terms of where that comb is, comb height, everything else. As well as this, I think it might be Hogue makes this. Yep, it's a Hogue, it's labeled right there, it's a Hogue grip. Very grippy, very nice. So this 350, accuracy, I'm going to say about the same. Very much capable to take a deer to 300 yards. I have shot this at 300 yards. One thing to note is that this 350 has a lot less drop than the 450. It's a lot lighter of a bullet. I can show you here because we keep these labeled. This is the 350 right there. That's somewhat what the reticle looks like, and that's so we don't forget when we're out trying to shoot a deer at 300 yards or 200 where we need to hold. And here it's the same reticle. This is a bit better of a drawing. I'm a great artist. But we use different lines for the drop to get to roughly 300 yards. It's not exactly accurate with the 350. It actually lined up very well. So if you were to take that into account in terms of accuracy of how much you need to hold over, then maybe the 350 is more accurate. But in my opinion, I'm just as capable of hitting a target at 300 yards with the 350 as I am the 450. Now, to take that into account as well with recoil, this has a just typical A2 bird cage. Occasionally I'll have a can on here, but usually it's just the A2 bird cage. And the stock is pretty nice. It's that sop mount or whatever, nice butt plate, really nice comb on here for your cheek. Nothing too fancy on the grip. I think it's some Apex or some crap. And the trigger is some really standard mil-spec trigger. I will say the trigger on the 450 is nicer, but to me, I've shot a lot of mil-spec triggers, so I don't mind it. In terms of recoil, this 350, it is a night and day comparison compared to the 450. If you are recoil sensitive, then you definitely are going to shoot this 350 better, and it's definitely going to be a better alternative than the 450. The 450 can beat your shoulder if you're not used to shooting 12 gauge slugs, which is what I grew up shooting deer. But in terms of actual accuracy of the gun's going to be more accurate than you 95% of the time, especially when you're shooting from a stand. So I think cost of ownership is also a big factor, especially if you plan to shoot this often, or if you want to have multiple rolls for it, or if it is just your dream deer gun. Our 450 Bushmaster, like I said, it's a Wyndham Weaponry 450 Bushmaster. I believe it's called the Thumper. They make a pistol version of it as well. Looks pretty cool, but we went rifle just because we had no intention for it to ever be a pistol. The box ammo costs about $30 for hunting rounds. I've never really seen full metal jacket rounds at local, outdoor stores or anywhere like that. So you're looking about $30 for 20 rounds. Your 350, like I said, I've seen full metal jacket rounds go for $15 for 20 rounds. Otherwise, typically, like I paid for this one, it was $25 for 20 rounds for some deer rounds. They also make 180 grain variants. I've really only seen 250 grain variants of 450 Bushmaster, but also I like Hornady, so maybe that's just why I've only seen that. I haven't really sought out anything different. But for the rifle itself, for the Wyndham Weaponry 450 Bushmaster rifle itself, we paid $800 plus $20 transfer fee. about $800. It's the same glass on top of these rifles, so I won't talk about that. And the muzzle brake we paid $50 for whatever that's worth. Don't have any extra mags for our 450 because it's a hunting rifle. We felt we didn't need one. Same as the 350, we only have one magazine. The 350 though, we did build, and it was a Palmetto State Armory lower parts kit as well as lower. I mean, with the special stock on it we have, I mean, we're looking at maybe $200 for that lower, and we paid, I think it was $350 for the complete upper. So we're looking at a $550 gun with no muzzle brake, nothing fancy on it. I think we paid 10 or 15 bucks for the extra magazine because it didn't, well, for the only magazine, it didn't come with one. Now, is the quality different there? Well, you know, Wyndham Weaponry, that is a cold hammer forged barrel. It's very nice bulk carrier group, and in my opinion, Wyndham Weaponry builds very good firearms. So that's kind of for you to decide, because you could build a more budget 450 Bushmaster, and I think you could land around the same range as a 350. Very common rifle though, chambered in both of these, is the Ruger American, the bolt action gun. In my mind, those actually don't really save you that much money over an AR-15. They're going to have more recoil. Yes, they are probably a little lighter. Maybe they're a little more simple to use, but you also, I mean, maybe you could get 2 shots on a deer in case, you know, you get jittery on that monster buck and you pull your shot and miss. Also, I'm just a huge fan of the more AR-15s I can own. Why not? As well as, you know, if any of my hunting buddies, they see it, like, holy crap, the thing's awesome. They shoot it. It's accurate. It's lightweight, low recoil. Get more people into that kind of sport. Overall, though, if I had to pick, you know, I'm going to say it depends. I am very happy to be able to have the option to shoot either of these. If I'm going for some monster buck and I don't want to mess around and I really know that there's a monster buck around, I'm going 450 because I don't want to take any chances. However, I'd like to be able to throw my suppressor on the 350. As well as have all those options of subsonic and everything else, and little light recoil shooting, right? And you know, it's not as loud, especially with a can on there. So to me, it depends. I really don't think you can go wrong either way. In my opinion, these are both 300-yard guns and 300-yard rounds, especially out of what I have 16-inch barrels.